We're gonna have a conversation on how you can optimize your fat metabolism for your marathon, how you can actually shift the scales so that when you run out of glycogen, you start metabolizing fat. But if you eat between 2 hours before the race and 20 minutes into the race, any calories that you take in during that time is gonna bring your blood sugar up, bring your insulin up, and you're going to be burning more glycogen at the start of your race. That's not what we wanna do. Now let's start with a little bit of a story. Take a look at the runners behind me here. We've got Frank Shorter here and we've got Steve Prefontaine here. Now these two, they're both really famous, really great American runners, and they were actually teammates and they trained together. But they were very different in the kinds of races they did. Prefontaine would do the 5,000 meter and Frank Shorter was a marathoner. They both ran at the 1972 Olympics and they would do some of their training together, but they had highly specified different kinds of training for their respective events. Now, one of the things that Frank Shorter did was that he did a 20-mile run every Sunday year round. It doesn't matter if it was an Olympic year, if it's the off season, if he's peaking, he just did this like a metronome. And one of the reasons he did that was to get himself fat adapted for his race. Because you see that in a short race, like a 5K, a 10K, or even a half marathon for most runners, they're not gonna need to worry about running out of glycogen. So let's review for just a second. What is glycogen? What is fat? How are we using it for our races? So glycogen is really your stored sugar. So you eat carbohydrate, and it turns into glucose and you can use that for fuel. But then we store away extra glucose as glycogen. We store it in our liver, in our muscles, and we use it for fuel when we're running at a high intensity. So if you go out the door and you just run down the road as hard as you can for a mile or even 3 or 4 miles, you're gonna have your heart rate go way up. You're gonna start to move some of this glycogen and you're gonna secrete insulin and you're gonna use it for fuel. Why do we use glycogen for fuel? It's because it is a faster way to make energy in the body, but it's not the most efficient and it will run out. We have a certain gas tank of glycogen and it'll run out at about 90 minutes, maybe up to 2 hours for a really well-trained runner. But if you are a marathoner, then you're probably running for more than 2 hours, more like 2 or 3 or 4 hours, maybe even more. And so you are going to run out of glycogen. And the topic of the video today is going to be talking about how you can actually shift the scales so that when you run out of glycogen, you start metabolizing fat. But there's a problem here. When you start to metabolize fat, that's what we call hitting the wall. Now, I know you've probably experienced this before if you've run a marathon. You're running along, you feel good, and then it feels like an elephant is sitting on your shoulders and you slow way down. Now, the reason for this is because you're now out of glycogen and you have to start metabolizing fat. But there's a problem. When you metabolize fat, it takes about 4 times as much oxygen as it does carbohydrate, like glycogen. So you're not going to breathe 4 times more, so you have to slow down in order to give yourself more time per mile or kilometer in order to get more breaths in to make fuel. So if you run out of glycogen, it means you're going to hit the wall. But there are some tricks that you can do to spare your glycogen. And how do we do that? We burn more fat earlier on in our race. Now, I'm going to talk with you about a couple of things you can do to teach your body to burn more fat in a race. And I'm going to share with you a device that you can use to actually measure this in real time. So let's go. Now, the most obvious thing that you can do is you can take in extra sugar when you're running a marathon. And that comes in the form normally of gels or sport drink. Now, you've probably heard of Goo and Powerade gels and Power Bar gels and Martin, which is actually a very good product. I highly recommend it. But no matter what you take, you're not taking in fat and you're not taking in protein. What are we taking in? We're taking in carbohydrates. It's normally about 100 calories per pack. Now, you're going to burn roughly about 100 calories per mile. It depends on your body weight. It depends on the altitude that you're at. So if you're going to run out of glycogen after about 90 minutes to 2 hours, you need to supplement extra sugar in the form of taking it in. But the problem is sometimes you're going to need an extra 1,000 calories or so of sugar, and you're not likely to take 10 gels. I mean, if you did it, you might even get sick. A lot of times in a marathon, we get really sick of those gels after maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 if you've got a really tough stomach. So you're still going to hit the wall. What do we do about this? Well, in your training, aside from just taking in extra fuel when you're running, go ahead and do that. But we also want to get the body to a capacity where we can store more glycogen, and then we can hold on to that glycogen for a longer period of time. And I'm gonna share with you kinds of runs that you can do in order to do that. So, where can we find this information? I know, for those of you who have already got a copy of the Run Elite book, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, really. But if you haven't, you may wanna pick up a copy. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up here to our trusty old page 169. Now on this page, I'll put a graph up here that looks a little bit more clean, but I just want you to see this. This is a graph of the fat and carbohydrate metabolism that you have during intensity. So look at the light gray. As your duration and exercise intensity goes up, you are going to burn less and less and less fat. And then look at the dark gray. You're gonna burn more and more and more carbohydrate. Essentially what this means is that as the intensity of your exercise goes up, you're gonna burn more carbohydrate and less fat. When we're just sitting around chilling right here, as I am right now, having a cup of tea, or when you're watching this video, you're probably burning mostly fat. Now, why is that? It's because you have an abundance of oxygen. You can just breathe however much you need. You're certainly not out of breath, I hope so, just sitting or running or whatever you're doing watching this video. But as you go out and run, you notice your heart rate goes up and your breathing rate goes up. Yeah, because you're trying to metabolize more of that sugar. So in the book, I talk about 3 different things that you can do for workouts in order to hold on to more sugar. And I'm gonna share even some extra ones with you here. First one is a glycogen depletion run. Now imagine that you go out the door for your run and you have a full store of glycogen. It's gonna take you a certain amount of time, 90 minutes, 2 hours or so, to really get low on that glycogen before your body has to transfer over and burn fat. Now that is a good stimulus for your body to learn how to burn more fat and to burn fat earlier. But you have to get there by multiple hours of running. So you can actually hack this just a little bit by doing a glycogen depletion run, which means you go into your run already a little bit glycogen depleted. Now you can do this by running first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything, because you stopped eating sometime the day before and you slept and you've burnt through some of your glycogen while you slept. So when you wake up, your glycogen stores are maybe 50% or so. And if you go out for a run, it's going to take you less time to get to that portion of your run where you're teaching your body to burn more fat. So you can do this. Now there is a problem with that. When you get really low on glycogen for a prolonged period of time, your immune system gets compromised, and so you might get sick. So I don't really recommend doing a lot of glycogen depletion runs. This is a little bit more of an advanced topic. So let's go on to a second kind of run that you can do. And that is number 2 in the Run Elite book, and I call it a fast finish long run. Now, all that means is that you go out for your long run, say it's 20 miles or so, and you do the first large portion of it nice and easy. And then you do the last portion of it, be it even just 1 mile, 3 miles, or 10K at the end, and you crank up the pace. You go faster and faster and faster. You're really just taking a long run and then finishing it fast. Now, the rationale behind this is that as you start to run low on glycogen and your body's wanting to now burn more fat, you demand from your body that now, because we're going fast, we have to burn more glycogen. And you actually don't run out of glycogen when you hit the wall. You're just at a very low, about 50% of your glycogen stores. So if you get to a run and you're low on glycogen, your body's wanting to really hold you back. But if you force it to go fast at the end, you give a stimulus to your body to be able to hold on to more glycogen next time. Your body's gonna say,
watch out, when this mofo goes for a run, they're gonna run fast at the end, so next time we're gonna hold on to more glycogen and we're gonna burn more fat earlier on.
So that's the second way that you can do this. Now, the third way that you can do this is to do something that I call an alternation run. Now, I actually learned about alternation runs from one of America's former greatest marathon runners. He's retired now, this was a while ago, but his name is Nate Jenkins. Now, an alternation run is where you go on a moderate long or a long run, and you're gonna alternate between faster than race pace and slower than race pace. Faster than race pace and slower than race pace and onward. You're gonna do this for about a mile at a time. So imagine that you're running at marathon pace. Let's call it 8 minutes per mile. Then what you're gonna do is maybe 8 to 10 miles of easy running, and you're gonna get those glycogen stores a little bit lower. Then what you do is you run faster. So we're gonna run maybe about 7:45 pace for a mile, and then you're going to run slower, maybe about 8:20 per mile pace. So it might be a little bit skewed towards the slower side. What this does is that when you run faster, your body is gonna want to start to burn through more glycogen, and it's going to. But then when you run slower, you give your body an ability to recover. And during that recovery, you're gonna shift a little bit back towards fat metabolism, and you're gonna go a little bit more carbohydrate, a little bit more fat. A little more carbohydrate, a little bit more fat. Now, a side effect of this is that you're going to be running an average of your marathon pace, which is very specific training for you. And so it's very good for your pace awareness and for your conditioning. But on top of that, it's going to condition you metabolically so that you learn to burn more fat. Now, here's a fourth one for you. This one's a little bit crazy. It is the very long run. Now, a very long run is something that I became personally very well versed in when I became an ultra runner. And so running an actual marathon distance doesn't feel like it's this giant, huge run. I mean, if I ran it fast, of course, I'm going to be hurting like anybody else. But if I'm going to run a 50 mile or 100 mile or 200 mile, I'm actually training for a 300 mile right now. A marathon itself is, a portion of that. And so I started doing longer and longer trail runs. And they would be 4 hours, 7 hours, sometimes 24 hours, sometimes 98 hours. The next one is going to be even longer than that. And what happens is that when I come back to a marathon distance or a half marathon distance, covering the distance itself isn't that huge of a deal. Like I say, if I try to do it fast, of course it's a huge deal, but just covering the distance on an easy run is something that is routine. So when I go back to a shorter distance, I have more glycogen stores. Now, why is that? Because when you run really long, you are not burning a lot of carbohydrate. Because in a race that takes you 2 days or 5 days or 7 days to do, if you're going to run out of glycogen after a few hours, you are screwed. You go so slow that you're burning mostly fat. And we want to keep in that fat metabolism as much as we can in an ultra. So when you come back to a marathon, you already are more fat adapted. And so this is the idea of a very long run. Now, very long can mean something different to everybody. A very long run for a first-time marathoner might be 18 miles. For a seasoned marathoner, it might be an over-distance run where you actually run a little bit more than a marathon, maybe a 50K, or maybe even just a marathon in training. But you may do it slower than race pace because you're not racing it in training. And so your time on feet is going to be longer than your race duration when you go to race your actual marathon. So you just want to have a lot of time on your feet at a slow pace. This is an over distance run, and you're going to teach your body to just metabolize fat, and keep that up. Now, there is a giant hack that you can do that is truly high level, and it is only for the seasoned marathoner, but here it is. Now, Kenny Moore was also a teammate of Frank Shorter and Prefontaine. Kenny Moore ran in the Mexico City Olympics, and he ran all through the 70s. He was a very good marathoner. Now, he had a workout that was kind of cool. He would do a 30-mile easy run, as if just running 30 miles at any pace is easy. But for a guy who's running really high volume, it wasn't a huge deal for him. 30-mile easy run, then he would get on the track and he would do a series of 1,000 meter intervals, and he'd do them fast. So that's kind of like that fast finish long run we just talked about, but it's also an over distance run. Now that is the holy grail if you want to learn how to burn fat better earlier on in your races. Now, this worked so well that he shared it with another famous runner you've probably heard of. His name is Jeff Galloway. Jeff Galloway is a really famous marathoner, and since retiring, he's now a very famous coach. You've probably heard of him. He is a proponent of the run-walk method. You probably know something about this guy. But Jeff Galloway was a world-class marathoner. Now, they were teammates, Kenny Moore and Jeff Galloway. But Jeff Galloway kept hitting the wall in his marathons. He'd get to mile 20 and he'd hit the wall. And this happened again and again. And he would up his mileage and he'd get to 180 miles per week. And he got to over 200 miles per week. And he would still hit the wall in his runs. He thought that if he just put in more mileage, he would be able to knock this out. But he couldn't do it until he talked to Kenny Moore. Now, Kenny Moore told him about this kind of workout. 30 miler plus 1,000 meter intervals at the end. Now, Jeff Galloway started to do that. And he said himself that he never hit the wall again for the rest of his career marathons, and he had many more years ahead of him. So this works for elite runners. This will work for you as well. So how do you know if you're burning carbohydrate or fat? Well, you don't really know unless you could measure it. And that brings me to the Lumen device. Now, this video is sponsored by Lumen, so thank you, Lumen. And I want to let you know that the code that I'm going to give you for a discount, this is not an affiliate link. It's just to pass on a discount to you. I get no kickback from that. I'm going to just give you my honest review of this. But essentially what this is a small handheld device that you breathe into, and it pairs with an app on your phone. And it's going to give you, after just about 10 seconds, it's going to tell you how much carbohydrate and how much fat you're burning. It's going to give you a little readout, and then it's going to give you a recommendation for what you can eat, what kinds of foods you might want to focus on in order to keep yourself wherever you want to be. And you're probably wanting to be a little bit more in fat metabolism at certain times in your training. Show you how it works. So we're going to go into the app, and we're going to do a check-in, and then it's gonna guide you through. Oh, I gotta turn it on. You just turn it on. It pairs. Okay, it says let's go.
Inhale deeply through your lumen. Hold your breath. Exhale in 3, 2, 1.
Now we see it's analyzing right now. And now it'll tell you, yeah, I'm burning a lot of carbs right now. So it gives you a scale of 1 to 5. And right now I'm burning 65% carbs, probably because I'm all amped up right now and I have a full stomach. But when you wake up in the morning, it'll show that you're burning more fat. And I'm just using this to track right now, and we're gonna do it for a while and see if we can see any changes when I'm training, when I'm eating, and when I'm sleeping. So really what it's doing is it's measuring your metabolism. Now, your metabolism is just converting food into energy, and you're gonna convert mostly either carbohydrate or fat. You can convert protein into energy, but it's not optimal. You're gonna go into ketosis or ketoacidosis if you do that. And we really don't wanna be in ketoacidosis when you're going for a run. You wanna be fueled up with carbohydrate, baby, and you want to get your body to be burning carbohydrate and fat as a fuel source. So your metabolism is your body's ability to do this. And we want to have a little bit of a handle on what our metabolism is doing. We want to know that if we go out for a run, if we're burning a lot of glycogen, we want to stop that. We want to ideally go for a run when we're in a fat optimized state. So another thing that you can do, I want you to listen very closely here. This is the last thing that I'm going to share with you. And this is a hack that will take some amount of time off of your marathon, probably a minute or two for most people. If you're on the slower end of the range, it's gonna take off even more than that. And that is this. So on race day, you're gonna eat breakfast, right? And that breakfast is gonna be in your stomach, it's gonna go into your intestine, and then it's gonna start to make its way into your blood. When it does this, your blood sugar is gonna go up. And as a response to that, your insulin is gonna come up so that you can take that sugar and pull it into the muscles and maybe store some as glycogen. But if you start your race when the gun goes off with elevated insulin and elevated glucose in your blood, what's gonna happen is that you're giving your body a signal to just go ahead, use up all the glycogen we have here because you have a lot of insulin in your body and you're just gonna use it up and you're gonna hit the wall earlier. So what I want you to do is on race day, I want you to stop eating about 2 hours before the gun goes off. That's right, I said it. You see sometimes on the starting line of a race that runners are like taking gels and things like this, and I don't recommend this. You will see elites doing this, and I'll tell you in about 90 seconds, I'll tell you exactly why that is and why they can get away with it, and you and I can't. But if you stop eating about 2 hours before your race, you're gonna give the food enough time, hopefully, to make it out of your stomach, and your insulin is gonna come up, your blood sugar is gonna go up, and then it's gonna come back down to a baseline. And we wanna start your race at this baseline so that you're encouraging your body to burn more fat earlier on. And then about 20 minutes into your race, you can start to take your first gel, like we talked about, the first hack that you can do on this video here. But if you eat between 2 hours before the race and 20 minutes into the race, any calories that you take in during that time is gonna bring your blood sugar up, bring your insulin up, and you're going to be burning more glycogen at the start of your race. That's not what we wanna do.
But wait, Andrew, I see elite runners taking in gels and drinking the sport drink right before.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an illusion because elite runners, number one, they are fit enough to where the marathon distance itself is not going to cripple them. They're running this thing in, the low 2 hours. They're really fast. And so they do a warm up. And so they're not actually taking a gel or a sport drink off of a cold body. They've actually been warming up for 10 or maybe 20 minutes. And so they actually are about 20 minutes into their run at a nice, easy warm up pace before they take that gel. But for you, for myself, for most people, we don't want to do a 20-minute warm-up before a marathon because you're just going to be getting additionally tired. You want to just keep loose, maybe a very small warm-up, and then maybe use your first mile, 2 or 3 as your warm-up in your marathon. And guess what? That warm-up is your first 20 minutes. And in those 20 minutes, don't take any calories. Wait and then take your first gel. So this has been Andrew Snow with Run Elite. I hope that you have found a lot of value in this video. I encourage you to pick up a copy of Run Elite, Train and Think Like the Greatest Runners of All Time. I'm also leaving a link down below if you want to try out the Lumen for yourself, and I'll see you on our next video. Thank you so much. Still need a last minute gift for the runner in your life, or maybe that runner is even you? If you need some stocking stuffers, then these are 3 gifts that don't break the bank and they bring a lot of value to you. I've used a lot of massage guns in my life, and this one is by far the best. It's by Bob and Brad. Now it comes with attachments that you can use that either will make it hot or cold, or you can do it as I use it with just the standard tip on this, but it's like a nice pointed tip that gets right deep into your muscles. It comes in a box that looks like this. It's pretty awesome, and I've got a coupon code for you in the description below. Number 2 is you want to get really good night of sleep, and there's nothing better than the Manta sleep mask. I've got 2 of them. I've got this one here, and I've got the one that has the built-in Bluetooth music, so you can listen to your white noise as you're sleeping as well. Now this thing is just the best. I've got a whole video that breaks down the massage gun and the Manta sleep mask here, but this thing is completely adjustable. These eye cups, they're so soft and they just go around your eye completely. It blocks out all of the light so you get that nice dark sleep. And then my number 1 pick for a gift, although I'm a little bit biased, is the Run Elite book. You can get it on Amazon, on Kindle, or even Audible. I recorded the audiobook myself, and it's doing extraordinarily well. Just check out the reviews on Amazon if you haven't read it yet. This is a game changer. So there's 3 amazing gift ideas for you for Christmas. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you back here on the next one. Thank you.